It's running. Great. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Omni Royal Orleans conference on seafood irradiation. Some of the other people that are going to be talking. My name, first, and I'm the National Director of Food and Water Incorporated, Food Safety and Environmental Organization, who is a chef with American Culinary Federation. He's also Deep South Network for Safe Food. We also have who is with LEAN, the Louisiana Network, and also Michael Zaru, a merchant here in New Orleans, and he owns the All Natural Market right here in New Orleans. Why are we here? We're here in response to the conference that's going on in New Orleans, the International Seafood Irradiation Conference. They're calling this a fact-finding conference, but consumer groups and scientists who are critical of the process. Downstairs is an industry love-in. They're locking out the real critics of this process and ignoring the consumer concern with this most serious issue. We're here today to warn consumers that seafood irradiation is a dangerous technology. It could harm health, it could harm the environment, and we're also here to warn the Louisiana seafood industry that seafood irradiation is a skunk of a technology, and it could damage severely, could destroy the base in the seafood irradiation industry. What exactly is food irradiation? Food irradiation has been around for about 40 years, and it comes from the nuclear industry. It was specifically an attempt to unload nuclear waste. It has not been proven safe. There are dozens of studies exposing foods to radiation create carcinogens and mutagens and can lead to birth defects and genetic mutations. When you expose seafood, the equivalent of 30 million chest x-rays, you are rearranging the molecular structure of that food and creating new potentially toxic chemicals. In addition, an extremely dangerous process to the environment. You're talking about transporting huge amounts of radioactive isotopes, jeopardizing the communities which host these facilities, and jeopardizing the workers that work in these facilities. In the brief history of this industry, we already have and spills which have killed workers, contaminated food, made radioactive products became radioactive because of mishaps, and contaminated surrounding communities hosting these facilities. Food irradiation does not make environmental or economic sense. How did they end up coming here? Well, it wasn't their first choice. They've tried to sell this technology to numerous other regions and to numerous other segments of the food industry. Particularly with seafood, they first tried to sell this in Alaska. The Alaska fishermen and consumers educated themselves and lobbied and rallied against this technology until the governor of that state, Governor Steve Cowper, rejected an irradiation facility in their state because, quote, it would damage their seafood reputation and destroy that industry in that state. They sent the irradiation industry packing in Alaska. Likewise, in Florida, where they have the first food irradiation facility in the nation, they built that for fruits and vegetables. They can't get any fruits and vegetable companies, large companies, to sell these products. 3 states in the United States have banned the sale of these products: New York, New Jersey, and Maine. Likewise, numerous other countries around the world have banned the process, including Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Sweden. Basically, you have an industry on the run, and they decided to exploit the seafood situation in Louisiana and swoop down in here with their skunk technology, their dangerous technology, and try to sell it to Louisiana seafood industry. And we're here to organize that seafood industry and to give them a strong warning that this is going to damage you possibly quite severely. Another thing I want to point out, which highlights the fact that this could damage your industry, is the fact that, well, first of all, the Food and Drug Administration has not approved seafood irradiation. So at this point, it's illegal to do it. Secondly, if they approve it, the rulings on the books dictate that seafood exposed to radiation cannot be called fresh. Can you imagine trying to sell Louisiana seafood to consumers around this country as not fresh from Louisiana and exposed to radiation? Good luck. Finally, I'd like to read a couple of statements that were sent to us by leading scientific and consumer advocacy organizations in the country who wanted to sound off at this rally and lend their support, but they couldn't be here. The first is from Public Voice for Food and Health Policy. It's from their executive director, Alan Haas. Briefly, it's all in all the packets, but I'll read just a couple of the statements. Alan Haas says, the use of irradiation on seafood to eliminate contaminants masks the real problem. An inadequate seafood safety program which cannot prevent contaminated seafood from making its way to consumers. She says instead we should opt for long-term safety solutions, not gimmicks like food irradiation. She says irradiation, however, is not the answer. In fact, it may serve to exacerbate the public health problems posed by contaminated, uninspected seafood. Another is Dr. Michael Jacobson from the Center for Science and the Public Interest in Washington, D.C. He wrote to the FDA when he found out that the FDA was participating in what we believe is a mock conference, and he said, I quote, "I urge you and other federal agencies not to participate in the Louisiana conference unless each of the sessions includes at least one bona fide critic of irradiation. To do otherwise would lose FDA's credibility to this farce." They have not, after this letter and after our letters and after consumer protests, they still have not allowed reputable critics of food irradiation to address the conference downstairs, and that's unconscionable. What are they afraid of? Why are they afraid of an open debate? This is a serious issue which demands serious discourse, and they're running from it. Finally, I spoke with Ralph Nader, and he wanted me to give his analogy to food irradiation today. He says, to propose to irradiate seafood is offering a stick of deodorant to someone in need of a shower. It's not the answer. We need to get at the root of the problem, which is clean up the waters, have mandatory inspecting and labeling, and get to the source instead of gimmicks like exposing food to radiation. That's the end of my comments. And now I'd like to introduce Ryan Boudreau, the chef with the American Culinary Federation, and also the spokesperson for the Deep South Network for Safe Food.
Okay, I'm Ryan Boudreau. I'm a member of the American Culinary Federation New Orleans chapter. I've been a chef in New Orleans for almost 9 years now. I've been knowing about food irradiation. I've been aware of it for about 8 years, and I feel the same as I did when I first found out about it. Irradiation of food and food products will not solve the sanitary and preservation problems which we are currently facing in the food service industry today. The quality of poultry, pork, fruits and vegetables, and Louisiana seafood cannot be improved from the exposure to irradiation. Each and every food service establishment has the obligation and the right to serve food that is safe and healthy for human consumption. And I am convinced that irradiated food is not safe and is not going to be healthy. Current sanitary guidelines for preserving food are sufficient, and it is unfortunate that we neglect and overlook these sanitary guidelines. Therefore, that is susceptible to high concentrations of bacterial contaminants. And they are always looking for a quick fix, some way to salvage the product, and I find that food irradiation is not the answer to that. The heart of the issues and responsibilities need to be addressed by the food service industry. For example, contaminated Louisiana oysters have caused many problems for the oyster industry. For oysters to be contaminated, they had to come from a contaminated waterbed, and this, of course, is a result of the polluting and dumping in our precious water resources. I feel that is the real issue that needs to be addressed. And I ask the Louisiana seafood industry to address this real issue about contaminated oysters, the pollution of our wetlands. Still, there are alternatives for producing fresh and healthy oysters used in today. I have purchased fresh filtered oysters that are healthy and considered sanitary under current guidelines. There are alternatives and choices. What are our choices? Food irradiation is just one of many choices that we have, and I believe it is not the right choice. And I close by asking the Louisiana seafood industry to address the real issues and to look at all of our alternatives before making a decision on the future of seafood in Louisiana. Thank you.
Can we ask you a question?
Okay.
What convinced you that irradiation of food is not safe and healthy?
I see it as an extra step in the food chain that really is not needed. There are conventional means of preserving food that can be used today, and as I stated, producers are negating those current guidelines of food products.
How does that safety of irradiated food? What convinced you
Well,
that food that's irradiated is not safe?
I feel that there has not been enough study done on this. It's a new thing, and I don't want to be another guinea pig for a technology that has not been tested. And I feel that to use Louisiana as a testing ground and the people of Louisiana is ridiculous. And the other fact that food that is irradiated cannot be labeled fresh, I really can't see how anybody can sell seafood in Louisiana called irradiated.
We will, after we get done with the statements, we will take more questions. Next, we have one of Louisiana's most prominent environmental organizers, Mary Lee Orr from the Louisiana Environmental Action Network.
Good morning. As Michael said, I'm Mary Lee Orr, Director of Louisiana Environmental Action Network. We're a coalition of more than 65 grassroots groups in Louisiana and individuals fighting for environmental justice. Those gentlemen have addressed part of the technological problems, the health problems, the sanitary problems, but I'm here to tell you as someone who represents a large amount of consumers that we simply do not want it. We do not want that extra step, as Chef Ryan said, in the food chain. People do not want to eat seafood that cannot be labeled fresh. Everyone in Louisiana, or everyone who comes to visit Louisiana, always talks about our wonderful food, how rich our resources are. It's really frightening for those of us in the environmental movement to know that we're number one in the absorption of toxics to our air, land, and water. And now, because they're not able to do this technology anyplace else, they are not welcome. They want to come to Louisiana. It's like we are truly the dumping ground of the nation. The people here are apathetic and they do not care. But I'm here to tell you, as representing a large group of people, we do care. We're outraged at the thought of doing this to our seafood. It is a way of life for our folks, the chefs who prepare them, the consumers, the tourists who come here. It's endangerment to our tourist trade. It's very, very wrong. And we're here, we're outside demonstrating. We're very upset. Yesterday at the Angela show, there was not a balance, that no one from Food and Water or anyone who could address this issue properly was allowed to speak. No one was allowed to address it at the conference. It is not right. We have that right as consumers to be educated about this issue and to make a choice. I think to myself, McDonald's campaign, where McDonald's would make the stores and tell us how good it was for us, and then we producing styrofoam and making those clams. Because the consumer said, we do not want it. The consumer who purchase seafood do not want to see irradiated seafood in their markets and served to them at the restaurants. Thank you very much. Oh, well, I'm lacking my duty. I'm sorry, Michael. I also want you to know that Louisiana Environmental Action Network at our 6th annual leadership conference passed a resolution unanimously. I hope you look at it in your packet. Besides the depletion of vitamins, the worry about technology, the fact that there's other ways to preserve our seafood, many of our concerns are addressed here. We unanimously adopted this resolution. We strongly, strongly oppose the irradiation of seafood or any food in the state of Louisiana. Thank you.
Okay, if we'll open it up for questions.
You mentioned a worker being killed.
Uh-huh.
What was that?
Actually, a couple workers have been killed, one in Italy and one in France, and I believe there was a near-death accident in New Jersey, but it wasn't this individual's month, because a couple weeks after he was exposed to what many believe to be an over-lethal dose, he died in a car accident. So, but the accidents have occurred overseas, and there are numerous. There are 38 facilities in the United States, irradiators. Most of them, almost all of them except one, do medical supplies sterilization and other consumer product sterilization, non-food items. Every irradiation company in the United States has had some nuclear mishap at their facility. The worst one was in Decatur, Georgia, where an irradiation facility had an accident with employees. It contaminated water supply. Over $40 million to clean up that place. And the state of Georgia and the federal
Michael, if you could explain how the food irradiate, what's the process?
Okay. Irradiation facilities are basically small nuclear facilities. What's used is stored in a huge pool of water, usually 25,000 gallons of water. It's a conveyor belt system. The chamber itself, which houses the radioactive isotopes, is 6-foot thick cement walls with very sturdy doors to prevent anyone from being irradiated when the food is being irradiated. The food will come into these chambers, 6-foot thick walls. Once it's all in there, the doors are shut, and the radioactive source comes out of the water electronically, and then it's exposed to that radiation. It depends on what the dose is. Usually it's in there for anywhere from a half hour to an hour being exposed to radiation. What is the dose in a way that lay people can understand? Well, if it's the approved dose for poultry is 3 million rads, or 300,000 rads. That's the equivalent of 30 million chest x-rays. That's the amount of energy going through the food products. And fruits and vegetables, it's 100,000 rads, which is equivalent to 10 million chest x-rays. So when the radiation industry, they always try to say, well, it's just like an x-ray machine. It's just like an x-ray. You get them at the dentist. You're talking millions of these things. And when you have that amount of energy going through the food, as I said in my opening remarks, you're just rearranging the entire molecular structure of the food and shuffling it. And while you're shuffling it, you're creating these new chemicals.
What is the nuclear source? What nuclear product, radioactive material do they use?
There are a few. The reason why we have food irradiation was because of a problem the Atomic Energy Commission had. Cesium-137, which is a direct byproduct of making. It comes from uranium and plutonium and that whole process. And it was because they had a problem with what to do with this cesium that they created this industry 30 or 40 years ago. That's one of the sources. They're having trouble selling that one because the Decatur, Georgia accident I spoke about involved the cesium. After telling consumers and having conferences like this for years telling there's no way cesium will leak, it's 100% safe, it's foolproof, it's state of the art, well, they had a major accident. So that was kind of temporarily on the shelf. Another one they're using is cobalt-60, which is also a radioactive gamma source. It comes from Canada. They mine cobalt-59. They put it in a reactor for about a year, make it radioactive, encapsulate it in these metal rods, and ship it to the facilities. There's also another source, which is a linear accelerator. It does not use a radioactive source, but no one's using that yet, and it'll be decades before that would be feasible, if it's feasible at all.
Now, both sides are quoting scientists and studies. You mentioned in your opening remarks that dozens of studies show it can lead to birth defects. What studies show that?
Gosh, it's a huge catalog of studies. Our senior staff scientist, Dr. Richard Piccioni, who's a biophysicist, did a literature review and looked at studies, and he's cataloged between 50 and 60, which prove that carcinogens and mutagens are created in the process. One of the most startling studies out there is a study that was done on human beings in India. They actually fed irradiated wheat to malnourished children. In a very short period of time, they noticed that these children had chromosomal abnormalities, a condition called polyploidy, which is a precursor to leukemia and other forms of the almost instant effects. The study off, but they did publish it. It was published in a peer-reviewed journal, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and to date, the irradiation industry has not refuted this study, and it stands as a study which shows that you're causing genetic damage when you eat irradiated wheat.
And who's the doctor that did that?
Dr. Vijay Lakshmi was associated with the study. It was done by the Nutrition Institute of India. Dr. Vijay Lakshmi is now a genetic toxicologist at Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. She's now in the United States, and she can't believe that conferences like this are going on. Because what's happened with this industry, we've switched from doing science to determine if it's safe. They're almost ignoring that. And now it's turning into conferences like what you're seeing in New Orleans, which is marketing conferences, public relations. How can we convince consumers to eat this stuff? But they've forgotten the first step. Safety. What happened to safety? And if you allow me to ramble a little bit, if you want to look at some of the studies, it's not really, well, I can point to dozens of studies which show it's damaging. That's not really the point. The point is the Food and Drug Administration, the industry, has to prove safety, and they haven't done that at all. When they approved fruits and vegetables for irradiation, they cited 5 studies which they said, quote, appeared to support the safety of this process. Now, they claim to be looking at this for 40 years and spending tens of millions of dollars. And then they can look at the American public with a straight face and say, and here are the 5 studies that we think show it's safe. Come on. You have to show more than 5 studies in theoretical assumptions, particularly when credentialed scientists have looked at those very studies and found serious problems. One of those 5 studies had animals, dogs, puppies, being born dead. The researchers said, we don't know what caused that, but we don't think it was the irradiated food. That's the sloppy science that's going on behind the FDA doors of these kind of conferences.
What backers 1,000 people a year who die from food poisoning in this country alone. Die from eating irradiated food, who's become sick from eating irradiated food?
Well, that's there certainly are real problems with pathogens on food, but there are much safer, much more economical ways to attack the problem. With irradiation, you're not really solving a problem, you're creating another problem. You're creating a whole infrastructure, a nuclear industry, to deal with a problem that could be solved by cleaning up poultry industry, for example, inspection with seafood, cleaning up the waterways with seafood. Proposing to use irradiation to clean up food contamination problem is a lot like proposing to use a chainsaw to cut butter. It's overkill. It's unnecessary, it's expensive, and you're creating new problems.
Well, my question is, you've got, 30 some odd countries that allow it in certain food products. It's been used for 20 to 30 years. Are there any documented cases of people getting sick or dying from eating irradiated food?
There are no studies. They often say that, 30 countries have approved it. There's a little disinformation going on. A lot of countries have approved this, most taking the lead of the Food and Drug Administration. Very few are using the technology. They like to get out their sheets showing the 36 countries which have approved it. Well, there's only a handful that are actually using it. South Africa, China, and the Soviet Union irradiate about 95% of the food in this country. Now, if we start following the social and technological policies of those 3 countries, I would recommend we're in serious trouble. And the other thing is, if they claim that people have been eating this for 20 or 30 years, where are the epidemiological studies to follow these people? You can't just throw a technology out there and say, well, it's safe. No one died when they ate that irradiated seafood dinner right now. We followed them for about 10 minutes. They left okay. They looked okay to me. That's not the kind of science that needs to be done on a technology with such serious ramifications.
So when the AMA, World Health Organization, FDA, USDA all say it's safe, you say they're lying? I'm
saying they don't have the facts to say that it's safe. They don't have scientific evidence to back up those claims, and to correct here, the American Medical Association has never done any studies on this issue, and to say that they support or declare this technology safe is not true. The World Health Organization is really been used, in my opinion, by their sister organization at the UN, the International Atomic Energy Agency. The IAEA always has these conferences on food irradiation, and they realize, who are we to try to talk about food? So they grab the arm of the WHO and run them in and slap the WHO's logo on top of it. So again, you have to look at their studies. I've seen the studies the World Health Organization is relying on, and I wish I had them with me because it's almost embarrassing. About half of them have not been published in peer-reviewed journals. Probably close to 70-80% of them are types of studies like, let's feed an irradiated apple to 6 mice for 2 weeks and see what happens. These are not long-term toxicological studies, and there's some type of whitewash going on in the scientific community which needs to be addressed. Anything else?
You said that the Soviet Union, China, and South Africa have been using it for 20 years, and 95% of the food have their cancer rates or illness rates of any kind gone up for unknown reasons more than before.
I don't know that.
There isn't any.
I doubt that stuff is published or those studies have been done.
Well,
Mike can
Can you
address.
explain, what do you mean 95% of their food?
No, 95% of the irradiated food in the
Overall
world.
production
Yeah, they don't
per-
irradiate 95% of their food.
How much of their food do they actually irradiate?
Oh, it's it's peanuts, nothing. It's maybe some wheat flour, maybe some grains. It's fruits and vegetables. We called the embassies of all the countries on the list of the 20, and almost every one of them responded, "We don't do it. We've approved it, but we don't do it." It's been approved in the United States since 1986.
1963.
Well, for pork, but really the main approval for 1986 was fruits and vegetables and whatnot. It's not being done here. So there's a big leap between approval and use.
The FDA approval, what is the status of that? Has anybody filed suit against the FDA for doing that approval, challenging the approval?
We've challenged it in the comment process. We've filed objections.
Comment process, or?
For poultry right now we're in the middle
No,
of the
I'm
comment.
talking about, well, let's talk
Fruits
about
and
the one that's been approved.
fruits and vegetables, it's over. It's
over.
approved.
So
It's on the books.
Have y'all gone to court to
It's
challenge
legal.
it?
No, we're not a legal organization. We are pursuing that with some other legal organizations in Washington, D.C., but we're a consumer education organization and a scientific organization, and we don't have the resources to challenge them in court. We're taking the case to the American people, letting them realize what's going on with this issue, and in turn, if they're opposed to it, taking the cause to the food industry. It's on their shoulders now.
Are there fruits and vegetables on the shelves that are irradiated, and if so, or if they will be labeled?
A good question. Only whole irradiated food has to be labeled. And the Food and Drug Administration has to oversee that labeling requirement, and they've proven with the waxed fruit and vegetable labeling requirements they're incapable of enforcing their requirements. Irradiated restaurant food, cafeteria food, lunchroom food, processed foods are all exempt from labeling. If you take chicken and irradiate it and use it in chicken soup, as a consumer you have no right to be notified that that soup contains irradiated food. It's an outrage. That's what the Food and Drug Administration ruled. Yes.
Spices been irradiated in this country?
There are about 3 to 5% of spices used in the United States have been irradiated for about a decade. The spice industry is moving away from irradiation. They just patented a process called steam pasteurization. It's called micromaster, and they realize that they can't sell irradiated spices. There's perception problems, there are environmental problems, all of which we laid out, so they're moving away from it. McCormick's is actually the one doing steam pasteurization.
Your critics have charged that if you're waging a campaign that's based in fear, not in facts, how would you respond to that?
Well, I think irradiated food it causes a lot of fear in me, and the people that I've talked to get pretty scared of it as well. If people are frightened, I think that fright is legitimate. And we use scientific literature to back up our claims on the safety problems of irradiated food. 99% of the people that I tell about, explain irradiated food to, sure, they're scared, and they have every right to be, because the federal government has approved a technology without proving that it's safe first. That's to me. We got to outside, so we should join them. It's right outside in front of the hotel, and I thank everyone for coming. If you didn't sign in, please press.
Up on us with shoddy science, public relations, and attempts to market the food before it's safe. And I say, stop the madness now. Stop it. We wanted to address this conference of irradiation industry people. We wanted scientists, credentialed scientists, some heads of medical schools to be in there to address the seafood industry and address the people of this conference and let them know about real, legitimate criticism of this technology. You know what they said? Get lost. Doors are locked. You're not allowed to talk here. That's why we are out here. That's why we had to come out here and have this rally and attempting
They're
to
afraid of the truth. That's right,
Exactly.
afraid of the truth.
What are they scared of? Why
Greed
can't,
hates good science.
exactly. Why
There's
can't
money
they,
in the truth.
why can't they sit down and talk to scientists who are critical? Why can't they let consumers, educated consumers, come in and talk to them? Talk about what we feel is wrong with food radiation. They're scared of something. Everything they do has to be way in these kind of fancy hotels, locked up in these beautiful conference rooms, and they're deciding about our health and the food policies that not only jeopardize us, but look at the kids here. Them too, for generations to come. And that's disturbing to me. Again, this is just the start. It's going to be the start of a movement. Deep South Network for Safe Food is going to get rolling. We're going to grow. We're going to educate our friends, our family, members of our organization. And we're going to continue to send a strong signal to this state, this governor, this head of the Department of Agriculture, Odom. Let them know that they better reject seafood irradiation. Or they're going to see a movement like they've never seen before. I think what we should do is maybe have a little chant. Let's get a little circle going. I know you guys have been doing this for a while.
He really wants to say a few words.
Before we do that, we're faced with one of the premier environmental organizers, Mary Lior.
From a student organization, yay! Environmental Health Network, yay! Environmental Law Clinic, yay! Southeast Sierra Club. Julie Swan Harris, who's with everybody, everywhere. My best friend and director of Environmental Health Network, and her one daughter, and son. One of my key hobbies that came all the way from Lake Charles, Shirley Goldsmith, dressed in her fish and she has a counterpart. Where's Michael Triticos from Sulphur? Michael! Okay. Michael! And Tyrone Powers, who's a waiter at Angelon's who doesn't want to see that the tourists or the people who live here serve fish that's been irradiated or seafood that's been irradiated. He really cares. You have a lot of courage here. Thank you so much. The lead, who took a stand. It's not easy to step out front. We really thank him very much. Michael, let's all stick together and make our numbers grow and educate. Let's make a commitment. Oh, and from here, and from yours. Not anybody, I'm sorry. But make the commitment. Are we going to make a commitment
hot shelf life. Human life, 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 hot shelf life. Don't nuke our food. 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 Keep our food fresh. 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 Don't nuke our food. They could do it. Keep our food fresh.
Write your
Keep our food. Keep our food fresh. Don't nuke 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 our food.
Food industry of Louisiana trying to irrigate their seafood to shelf life purposes.
Don't nuke our food. Keep our food fresh. 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 Don't nuke our food. Thank you everyone for coming again. On behalf of everyone who's put this together, State Life Center. Hey, hey! Not on the network, not on the mailing list. Give your name and address and we'll keep you posted on everything that's going on. Or call Kate.
I'm the last step on the telephone book, but Audrey's taking down names and addresses.
From Lake Charles.
She went to move the car.